My Lords, it is a great pleasure to participate in this debate on His Majesty's gracious speech, and I declare my interest as set out in the Register. Public speaking and debating are not my natural territories. My career has been in retail, not politics. Although, as my husband pointed out, there are similarities. The voter, like the customer, is always right. This is an overwhelming honour. What has struck me here in my short time in this House has been the courtesy and kindness on both sides. I have been made to feel welcome, and my vast areas of ignorance on the workings of this place and many other things besides have been tactfully dealt with. Thank you too to my supporters, the noble Lord Altrincham, the noble Lord Laming, who has given me so much wise advice over the years. To my noble friend Baroness Fraser of Craigmeddy for her encouragement and support, and Black Rod for her pertinent advice. Thank you also to the clerks and the doorkeepers, not just for all that they have done for me in terms of instructions on protocol and dealing with my lamentable lack of direction, but with their warm welcome to my daughter Domenica, who has Down syndrome, when she came to this house for my introduction. She, or rather the charity that I started in her name, is one of the reasons that I am in this house. My father, a hereditary peer, was a proud member of this place. He was a career soldier, and his last posting was as Chief of Staff, British Army of the Rhine. And he was also an Arabist. And he brought this expertise to the relevant committees and sat as a crossbencher. However, his manifesto, in a bid to stay in this house, was not successful. All cats to be muzzled outside to stop the agonising torture of mice and small birds didn't quite cut it. His sister, my aunt, Valerie Goulding, was an inspiration to me. She started the Central Remedial Clinic in Ireland, which devotes itself to children and adults with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, and muscular dystrophy. She was made a member of the Senate by the Taoiseach for her charitable work. The author of Under the Eye of the Clock, Christopher Nolan, was one of Valerie's patients, and it was her fierce commitment to his potential that enabled him to become an author. He wrote that he owed his success to Lady Goulding and her harbour of hope. In his gracious speech, His Majesty made reference to breaking down barriers to opportunities. That is exactly what we do at Team Domenica for young adults with learning disabilities. Our aim is to get them into paid employment. And we have an 81% paid employment rate against a national average of 4.8. People with learning disabilities are the most forgotten in our society, and I feel passionately that they should have the same chances as everyone else. The world is theirs just as much as it is ours. But in education, the mainstreaming of children with learning disabilities is not always appropriate. My daughter spent several hours sitting in a corridor because it was maths or because it was science. Actually, what it was isolating, and the silence of Domenica's loneliness was deafening. I would like to suggest to the Minister that the remaining schools for those with moderate learning difficulties are vital for families whose children are not confident enough to cope with mainstream education. We must not become so blinded by ideology that we no longer see or understand the individual needs of the vulnerable people in our care. In concentrating on education, in building self-confidence, we can make a life-changing difference. If someone believes in you, you start to believe in yourself. I've seen this time and again with our young adults at Team Domenica who have got paid jobs with the wonderful businesses in Brighton and Hove who support us so well. And I've seen the transformation in Domenica's confidence too, through belonging, through being more like her sister. although she has some way to go before matching the supreme self-confidence of her late grandfather, known to his children as Jampa, but probably more familiar to you in your Lordship's house as Lord Lawson of Blaby. But we need to remember that a lifelong learning disability is exactly that, lifelong. Education needs to continue, support needs to continue, and the process of getting an education, health and care plan needs to be much less stressful. And I, like others who have spoken before me today, worry about what the effect would be of a 20% education tax on the parents of the almost 100,000 children in the independent sector who do not have an EHCP but who have special needs. Will the unintended consequences be many more parents trying to get an EHCP in a system that is already at breaking point? I look forward to raising my voice with others in your Lordship's house to speak up for the voiceless and to standing up for parents, siblings and carers. No one can know where the limits of love lie, nor should we ever judge those who are sometimes struggling to cope. I've been there myself. But what we do need to know is where the limits of state responsibility begin and end. And we must ensure, at least, that it doesn't make parents' lives and those of their children more difficult than they already are.
Yeah. Very good.